All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Coffee with Candidates for Ward 4. I'm Jack Genoway. I'm the Business Advocacy Manager for the Billings Chamber of Commerce. First and foremost, thank you all for coming today and wanting to learn more about what's going on in local politics. I also have to thank our sponsors. We wouldn't be able to hold free events like this without them. First Interstate Bank, KLJ, Western Security Bank, Phillips 66, Rocky Mountain College, Riverstone Health, Par Montana, and Julie Seedhouse with Century 21 Home Brokers. And of course, I want to thank the Billings Association of Realtors for being our series host. And I'd like to turn it over to Steve Simonson with the VAR to talk a little bit about the work that they do.
Great. Thank you, Jack. I'm happy to be the host today for the venue for Ward 4. A little bit about the Billings Association of Realtors. We are an association of over 3,000 members. If you draw a line from Red Lodge up through Lewistown to Havre and all points east, that's the territory covered by the Billings Association of Realtors. And by the way, we vote, so welcome. The other important thing is restrooms are just around the corner, and please enjoy yourselves today.
Thank you. We are recording this event today for the benefit of anybody who is not able to be here. That's what the microphones are for. We'll have those videos posted up on our website just as soon as I can get them ready. But we'll just try to project to all of you in the audience today. So first and foremost, we just want to give the candidates an opportunity to introduce themselves to the audience, voters the opportunity to get to know you, your priorities, your qualifications, your hopes and dreams. So please introduce yourself to the audience and tell us why you want to be on City Council. And I'll alternate who starts each question. And so we'll start closer to me with Mr. Aspenleiter.
Okay, so my name is Scott Aspenleiter. I'm a business owner here in Billings. I own Performance Engineering, a civil engineering firm. I graduated from MSU in 2005. I'm a licensed civil engineer here in Montana. And we employ 15 civil engineers doing a lot of work around town, but also in the Rocky Mountain West. My background is infrastructure, land use planning, and that's really where I excel. My wife and I have 3 boys, 8, 9, and soon to be 13 here on Saturday. That's the reason that I'm in this race, candidly. Billings, as it's constituted right now, is not necessarily the city that I want to leave my kids. It's not the city I want to leave my sons. It's not the safe place that it used to be, even 10 years ago. We are seeing incredible changes in our community. Along with those changes and the positive economic growth and development that we're seeing a significant uptick in crime, violent crime, drug-related crime, and domestic violence that we don't talk about in our community. We have got to get serious about public health and public safety. We have not done enough, in my opinion, to address those issues, to make this the city that we want it to be, and to make it the attractive community for people that I try to hire and the families that we're trying to bring in to really build a good, solid foundation. When I'm out hiring, and we're in recruiting season right now at the colleges, the one question I get asked all the time, regardless if I'm recruiting in South Dakota, in Wyoming, over at Tech, at MSU, is, boy, Billings has got a lot of crime. It's got a lot of crime. Is it safe? Is Billings safe? That's the question I get asked. I don't get asked the question, what do our parks and trails look like? Is it a safe community for me to bring my family? So I appreciate the opportunity for the conversation. I look forward to having it with you today.
All right. Same question to you, Mr. Hernandez.
Good morning, and thank you for being here. I believe that Billings is still my preferred city to live in. I've been living here for 43 years. I think that Billings is a wonderful city. I think that we have far more jewels than the issues that we tend to read about. And I am interested in having some of this narrative that we are a crime-ridden city to change, because I do not believe that's true. Do we have serious crime? Every city deals with serious crime and violent crimes. And does it need to be addressed? Absolutely. I have been advocating for many of the victims of violence for decades, so I am not blind to that. However, I don't think that it does us any favors for us to simply focus just on the narrative that we have that this is a crime-ridden city. It's not. I don't believe that. We need to address those issues, public safety, and I am here to, I'm running because I want Billings to be recognized as the #1 city in Montana. I believe it is. I've chosen to live in this city, and there are, what makes this city great are the people who are here, the people who are coming, and the amenities that Billings forefathers and mothers have put before us. And I feel that we have a responsibility to continue to grow this city in a responsible and accommodating way for our children, our grandchildren, and our future citizens. So I look forward to hearing some of the questions and talking to you further.
Okay. We'll come back to you for this next question. Public safety, you both touched on it in your opening remarks, and it is still City Council's #1 formally adopted stated policy priority. So the question's simple. What do you believe the city of Billings should do about public safety?
I think that one of the things about public safety is, yes, we need to address violent crime, and I agree that that domestic violence is actually one of the issues that we really need to address, and we're scared to talk about as a community in our society, here and beyond. We need to look at that. I think that we need to also not be scared to discuss what we need in mental health treatment and services in this city and beyond. We have done a great disservice for our citizens to not have the mental health services readily available. And so I think that often it's hard to do. I'm not a single issue person because I know it's not quite that easy. There are things that are connected, and we need to have a comprehensive look at how we can address violent crimes and the underlying issues that lead to those crimes. And I'll leave it at that for now.
Mr. Ethenlader.
I don't think you can talk to one person in our community that will tell you that they feel safer today than they felt last year, 2 years ago, or 5 years ago. All of the statistics say that crime in our community is going up, particularly drug crime and violent crime. I don't care if you look at the Billings PD's statistics or at the Department of Justice's statistics. So this notion that we don't have a crime problem or it's not that bad is nonsense. That's not wanting to talk about the real issue that we have at hand. We need leadership. We are a different city today than we were 20 years ago, and we still operate like it's 1990 or 2000 in the way that we attack crime. We have 0 task forces formed with the Department of Justice and the Billings PD right now addressing crime or drug crime. We have the Drug Task Force, which covers Eastern Montana, but we have nothing focused here. Department of Justice is putting criminal investigation units and staff and employees here in Billings because they identified Billings as a crux of the crime problem and the drug problem in Montana. We are not leading our own people in trying to address that. I'll give you some statistics about just the poor leadership that we have in the city attorney's office, candidly. These are May 11 statistics, so I don't have real statistics today, but these came from the city attorney's office. We had 349 domestic violence cases from 2022 that were unfiled as of May. 141 domestic violence cases from January to May 11th in 2023 that were unfiled. 49 non-domestic violence cases from 2022 that were still unfiled, and 146 non-domestic violence cases from 2023 that were unfiled. That was May 11th. These are a little bit dated statistics, but it gives you an example of the poor leadership that we have in our city attorney's office. We're not going to change crime unless we prosecute crime. And we are not prosecuting crime in our community. I'll tell you that as a fact.
All right. Next question. We'll come back to you, Mr. Aspen, later. In addition to the city council election, this fall's November ballot is going to have a $143 million Parks, Recreations, and Trails bond to fund the development of said Parks, Recreation, and Trails. So, do you support this initiative, and why or why not?
So I'll say the unpopular thing. I am adamantly opposed to this Parks and Rec bond as it's proposed. I think it's wildly fiscally irresponsible. I don't think it's vetted to its entirety, and I don't think that we are being honest with the electorate by saying this is $143 million and we're going to build your neighborhood park. Our neighborhood park in Ward 4 is Cottonwood Park. The master plan says Cottonwood Park is going to cost anywhere from $19 million to $25 million. This bond is going to dedicate $1 million to Cottonwood Park. You know what that gets you? A parking lot. That's not what the voters are hearing. That's not what's being told to them. We are being misleading with the electorate about how we're spending money and what we're going to do with this. Would I love a rec center? My 3 boys would love it. But I think it's irresponsible when we know that we've got a jail capacity issue and we're going to face a $150 to $200 million bond election coming from the county sometime in the next 2 to 4 years to deal with that. We're also going to face a bond election from School District 2 because of capacity issues that we have in our school system. Those are core government functions. Parks and Rec is not a core government function. It's nice, it's a good amenity to our community, and it's certainly something that draws people here. But I'll tell you again, when I talk to kids at college and try to recruit professionals to come to our community, I don't get asked what our park situation is. I get asked about our public safety. That's a harder conversation, and it's one that we need to focus on. I think we have misdirected our priorities with this Parks and Rec bond, understanding that we are going to be hoisting this on the back of the taxpayer with another $60 million bond coming in 5 years, according to Councilman Repsis's own calculations, to operate it. I think that's irresponsible, and I would not support it. I would support a smaller parks bond, but I am not in support of the rec center as it sits today.
All right. Ms. Hernandez.
I am in support of taking this before the voters. And again, at the end of the day, the voters get to decide whether or not they want to invest in this. Do I feel it's a good investment? Yes. Well, we were just talking about reducing crime. In order to reduce crime, and there are studies too that are showing that that people have a difficult time connecting with one another, and often that is one of the underlying issues as to why crime happens. So having a rec services, having recreational services, available parks and so forth for our citizens gives them a place to gather, to play, to be able to utilize services. And I know that when I speak to people who are interested in coming to Billings and Montana, they want to know what the amenities are. There is at times there is an assumption that these amenities are already available, but people want these amenities in the communities they live in. In Ward 4, I live in a neighborhood where, oh my goodness, people are walkers. People are out all the time, utilizing the trails, utilizing the parks, utilizing the services that we have available now. We want people to be able to be out and visiting with one another. I mean, I know the walkers in my neighborhood because I see them, often, if not daily. So I think that being able to build these amenities is an investment for our kids, our grandkids, the future, and I think that it also will help to address some of the crime issues we have.
All right. So I know that you're both already familiar with the concept, but for the audience's context, tax increment finance districts are these districts where you get to you freeze the amount of revenue collected from taxes and the rest goes into an account that's used to reinvest within that specific district. So the question is, do you support tax increment finance districts generally, and are there any changes that you would propose to how they are used?
Yes, I support TIF. And I feel that we have had wonderful leaders. I don't always agree with their decisions, but I feel that we have had leaders who have really been thoughtful in how the funds are used and the changes that are being made. I think it would be premature for me to say this is what I expect to have happen until I feel I live with the policies and currently the issues that are coming up before I were to suggest those changes. Right now, I am in a listening mode with the voters in my area and voters and also my neighbors and citizens, because a lot of people don't vote who are just as concerned. And those are folks that I want to have engaged in these conversations and to become voters. Again, I feel that I'm open to listening more. I don't see anything that I feel that needs to be changed right now without my learning more about how that would impact the ability to provide TIF funds for others.
Mr. Aspenlater.
So I'm always in listening mode, but I'm also always in action mode. And if TIF is kind of inside baseball, it maybe not to the realtors in the room, but it's something that has been misused by the western part of our state pretty profusely. And if you paid attention to the legislature and been engaged in the legislature over the last two sessions, you would know we almost lost the TIF districts last session. We are going to see changes in the TIF districts. The TIF districts have done a great job in Billings. The eBird and the Espera have done great things for reinvesting money in our community and really spark development. All you got to do is look at the South Frontage Road and the development that's going on down there right now. That was really kicked off by some participation from the S-Bird. The changes I think that are coming, and I've got a call, I'm on a panel and a study commission with the Montana Chamber of Commerce to talk about this tomorrow with Mr. Brooks. We are going to see some changes. TIF was originally put in place to provide the infrastructure necessary to develop on lot. That means horizontal construction, roads, sidewalk, curb, gutter, water, sewer, to make it less expensive to pull public utilities to the lot to develop and invest privately. We need to get back to horizontal construction with TIF. Blight is something that's misused all the time. We get in a bad habit of doing it downtown, of spending money on windows, spending money on vertical components that are really, truly private investments and should be private investments. TIF dollars, in my mind, should be for demolition of blighted structures, which are uninhabitable, to take down to create brownfield sites to develop, or to stretch utilities to encourage development in our communities. That was the intent of TIF. It's been bastardized by some districts in the West and misused and turned into what we have. If we don't come with some changes this next legislative session, we're going to lose it altogether. So my proposal would be, let's refocus back on horizontal construction and removing blighted structures and really put the focus back on what it was intended.
All right. Also, we are at the Realtors, and so we've got to ask about zoning. So a couple of years ago, City Council adopted Project Recode, which was the first major update to the city's land use policies in years, which has a big effect on what gets built where, and affordable housing and a variety of other things, our overall development pattern as a city. So how do you feel that Project Recode is working so far? And are there any further changes that you would like to see made to the zoning code?
Sure. So this is actually where I make my living, in land use development and land planning. I act as the human meat shield a lot of times for my clients going through zone changes and land planning. It's not always fun. It's not always comfortable, not just for the developer, but also for the neighborhoods. Recode, I think, clarified a lot of things. It made a lot of things better as it relates to changing ag ground to developable ground. It's made things more predictable for the neighborhood, but it's always going to be an uncomfortable conversation. Always. turning a wheat field into a field of houses. Nobody wants that in their backyard, but that's the reality. So I think there's been a lot of good things that have come out of Recode. I think we still have some issues as it relates to commercial development and how we interface commercial development with residential development. Recode really put the screws to the gaming and liquor industry and businesses in our community. If you lose your casino on Grand Avenue or your place of business on Grand Avenue, more than 50%, you can't rebuild it. That's a lawsuit waiting to happen, and the city's going to get sued when that does happen, and they'll likely lose because of the constitutionality of that ordinance. So we need to make some changes as it relates to how we interface neighborhoods, residential neighborhoods, with commercial development. But as on the whole, I think it's been a positive for our community. We're planning with a little bit more foresight. We're giving a little bit more consistency and stability in that process to the neighbors that we're going to be impacting. And it presents a better process for all involved. It's still not comfortable. Nobody likes a zone change in their backyard, but it's a necessary part of our city. And what we've done is made it a little bit more predictable. So we have some things to improve on the commercial side, but it's been a net positive to some extent.
All right. Mr. Hernandez.
I think that with any policy, the responsibility of the city council is to see how those policies are working for our city. So whenever changes are needed, and I don't have any changes to propose with policies at this point for this coding. It's important to understand what the results or who's going to be affected by those. I am interested. I know that Scott is interested in commercial development and so forth. I believe that we really need to address housing. It is critical that we address housing. It's not only our community; our whole country is behind in providing adequate housing for our people. And, certainly I think that if we are to be the leader in this state, we need to lead the way in providing affordable housing. And that is at all levels. And that means that is not single level or single, we need multiple family units and just a variety of housing available for our citizens and for our community. It's the only way we can grow. And right now, if we are going to address the housing issue, number one, we're behind in addressing housing across here and across the country. But we certainly don't want to see what other cities are seeing right now in their communities, because we already are stretched in providing services to our fellow Montanans. This is one of the cities that provides services that people come to to receive services. So housing to me is a number one thing, and coding, I believe in the SEPTED principles and would follow codes to help grow that.
All right. I have one more question that I'd like to ask the candidates, but then we'd like to hear questions from you as the audience. So be thinking about what you would like to hear from these two Ward 4 candidates. So the last question is, in 2024, Billings voters or Yellowstone County voters are going to be asked whether they would like to review the city charter and our local forms of government. So are there any changes that you would support to our city charter, Mrs. Hernandez?
My answer is, if we are to assign a committee, some council or a group to oversee this, I am not going to tell them what changes need to happen. I think that we still need to look at that and really look at how that impacts the decisions that are any changes that are to be made, how that would impact our city. Through what they would predict would happen. And no one has a crystal ball, but we certainly have plenty of other cities whose governance structures we can look at and so forth to see how, if any, changes we would propose. I'll just leave it at that. It's not, again, I think that there are good things and challenging things with any governance structure. So it's really looking to see how we would address those and what the ultimate outcome we would like to see as a result of that, and if try to put in place those policies that work best for them.
Mr. Aspenlater.
So I'll answer the question. I certainly support a review of this. I think in 50 years, our city has changed dramatically from the way that we were originally set up and chartered. Do we need wide sweeping changes? I wouldn't say that we need sweeping changes. Should we increase the number of mills that we can assess in the charter? No, I wouldn't change that. But I think we do need to take a serious look at whether a city manager form of government is the appropriate type of government for our community at 120,000 people. I am all for accountability of elected officials. Accountability. I think it's hard to get that level of accountability from a city manager managed government. I think an elected mayor run government gives you that level of accountability. Now, there are some challenges that come with that. We have to find that person to run our city. In 120,000 people, I'm certain that we can find one that is responsible, accountable, and can do a good job in helping our community grow and giving it the direction. But I think it's more than time for us to open this up. I don't think we're going to be successful in this voter election. My business partner, who works in this space, had no idea what the charter was, and he lives in this. The guy mowing his lawn down the street from me really has no clue. I think this is a matter that's going to go down in flames in the election in November because nobody understands what it is. And I think it's something that the city council, newly constituted in whatever form that looks like in January, needs to pick up and have a serious conversation and a serious discussion about it. There's not enough time, not enough money to get that out to the voters right now, but I think that's our responsibility as elected officials to lead on this issue. Do we think this is the right way for us to run our city anymore? I don't know that it is. I strongly feel that maybe it's not, but I think that's why we put the panel in place and we give it some serious consideration. So I support it. I think it's going to lose in November, but I'd support it as a council member.
All right. I'm going to turn it over to questions from the audience. Like I said earlier, we're recording this event. We have a wireless microphone that we'll pass around so that the people who are watching at home can hear what the question was. As most of you know, this is the only ward this year that does not have an incumbent running for re-election. Councilwoman Purington, who's with us today, elected not to run for re-election, and we wish her the best in her next endeavors. But as the incumbent, I'd like to invite you to ask the first question.
Well, great. Thanks. Is that on?
It's just recording.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Ward 4 is very insulated, I think, from the rest of the city. We don't have a lot of commercial, primarily residential. We have traffic issues, which are throughout the city. So I guess mine is almost twofold. Traffic issues. The other one is, Mary touched on it, was housing. So it's not particularly a housing issue, but it's the transit issue. We see some of it, further west now, especially during the nicer days. We get it at Shiloh and Grand. So my ask to you is, do you believe it's the job of the city government to provide housing for transients, and what services you think should be available to them? You may want to skip the traffic one because I think that's kind of a no-brainer.
All right. Mr. Aspenlater.
I think we should provide the services to help these people get the mental health treatment that they need, but I do not feel like it's the city government's job to provide housing and long-term permanent housing for our transient population. I think we need to do a better job of providing services to help these people either get up out of their current station in life and advance and become productive members of society, or get out. Letting and facilitating the lingering of the transient population is not helping our community at all. There are some that need help and will improve, and there are some that have no intent on improving. And I think we have to be honest about that. Those are the folks that need to get out. They don't help our community grow. They create problems, and we are not making a vibrant city by having them around. Help those who want help, and move those that don't on down the road.
Mr. Hernandez.
I think our society has done a poor job in taking care of those who are not in a position to help themselves. I do feel that the city has a responsibility for that because we take care of our own. I do not believe in bus treatment. I don't believe that there is no island here in Montana that we can just send people to that we don't want to see. I feel that it's not transients. It's not only transients that we are responsible for. There are so many people that are invisible, that are living on the edge. They are a paycheck away or less from needing additional services that we need to help role model as far as being leaders in the city to bring people together to solve some of these issues. It's not all the city Billings responsibility. It is our citizens' responsibility, but the city has a role in leading those conversations and bringing those services together to discuss how we create a livable community for all of our citizens and all of the people within our community. To ship people off is not a very inviting community to visitors, nor the people who are born here and who are Montanans.
Any other questions from the audience?
Thank you. Mr. Aspen Leader, I participate in the West End Neighborhood Task Force, and so I get texts and emails about development happening on the West End primarily. You mentioned, what was the phrase you used, that your company serves as a meat fence?
A meat shield.
Meat
Yeah.
shield.
Yeah.
And I can understand that. I've seen your guys' name, the company name, on a lot of developments. So do you anticipate that being a problem if you do get elected? Might there be things that you have to recuse yourself due to conflict of interest?
There certainly will be things that I have to recuse myself from a vote on due to conflict of interest. If you look back at 2021 and 2022, I don't think at any point in time we had more than 6 to 8 developments go in front of City Council. That's not a huge load. I can't be the meat shield anymore, leading those discussions with the West End Task Force and with the neighborhoods. That'll be my staff that will take over that. So there is no perceived notion that I'm actively involved in that. Those will be managed by our project managers and our staff, just like they are today. But I'll have to recuse myself from those votes in things that our company is directly engaged with. I do that already as the District 5 Transportation Commissioner for MDT. When we have permits in front of the Transportation Commission, I recuse myself. It's never been a problem. There's never been a question raised about that. And my participation still in 99% of the work that gets done is very active, very engaged, and very positive. So I'm happy to recuse. I have a track record of being able to separate myself from those issues, and that's the way that we'll handle it.
Okay. Any other questions from the audience?
I would like to know who is going to pay for the Stagecoach Trail. The Skyline Trail was paid for from a federal grant. That's my understanding. And the Stagecoach Trail was also supposed to be paid for with a federal grant. Now I understand that the Stagecoach Trail is tied into whether or not the Parks bill passes for $143 million. If the Parks bill does not pass, is the Stagecoach Trail tabled for now? And if so, where's the accountability and where did those funds go from the government to pay for the Stagecoach Trail?
Mr. Hernandez.
In building parks and in town, well, let me just say, I was assigned a couple of decades ago or better to create the capital campaign that helped to put Amon Park in place. Okay, so over the years, there have been a number of times when the community has come together where nonprofits, okay, a lot of times nonprofits help to fill the gap of those unfunded mandates. That's quite common. We go out and we find funding from private donors, generous people who give to help make some of these things a reality, some of these plans a reality. Whether it's federal funds, whether it is private funding, I have confidence that our leaders, our city leaders, will do everything they can to bring people together to help create these parks and trails and so forth. Yes, there are maintenance issues. There's infrastructure maintenance issues. There's, cost, they don't go away. This is nothing new. It's ongoing. And I'm not, I don't think I'm a frivolous spender or anything like that. But I feel it's an investment in our community. And again, an investment for the future. If I, when elected, I will be certain to make sure that we bring people together to help find the funding. I certainly understand the pain that, my neighbors and others have about increasing property taxes or, the things that increasing costs. I know folks that, have to count their pennies before they go to the grocery store. So I understand finance as well. And I feel that it's a responsibility of the city council to bring leaders together in finding that funding and not just rely on, just on any one source.
Mr. Aspenlater.
So I appreciate the question, and it's something that I'm actively working on the Montana Transportation Commission that I was appointed to 4 years ago by Governor Gianforte. And I'll stay with me because I'm going to get a little bit into the weeds about how this works. But there's funding called Transportation Alternatives funding that comes from the Federal Highways Bill. It's allocated to the state of Montana. The state of Montana allocates some to Yellowstone County, some to the city of Billings, and those TA funds, as they're referred to by MDT, are generally what you see spent on things like Stagecoach Trail. In its current form right now, TA funds that have been obligated to the city of Billings, I'm not 100% sure where the priorities for those obligations have been and are currently, or where Stagecoach Trail lands on that list. But the state of Montana has funding available at the state level and then also through federal highway dollars down to the city of Billings if the city of Billings makes that a priority to apply for and to apply their TA funds. Now, the single year allocation of TA funds for the city of Billings is not going to pay for Stagecoach Trail. Unless that's saved for years and years and years, that it's not going to pay for the entirety of that project. As a commissioner for MDT, I don't support state gas tax dollars coming into Billings and paying for a trail project. I don't support that. I don't think the people in Northeast Montana support building a trail for the people of Billings with their gas tax dollars, and I don't support it. But transportation dollars and TA funding is there and is available from the federal funding mechanisms. The city is going to have to pony up. My work on the Transportation Commission has been to push these TA projects and priorities, whether it be Missoula, Great Falls, Bozeman, Butte, Helena, or Billings, to push the responsibility for those down to the local level. So if it's your priority as a community, here's the federal dollars that you get allocated. Now you spend it, you prioritize it, you run the project. MDT will get out of the way, get the red tape gone, and let the community take the lead.
All right. Any other questions from the audience?
City of Billings is obviously growing much faster than and bigger than many cities in the rest of the state. My question to you two is at high level vision planning for our city. Who do you think is currently providing vision for where we're going? And I don't mean to say that in any way that I think our staff is not doing a good job, but is it staff or is it our elected leaders? And I'm curious who you think should be applying high-level visionary planning for our community.
Mr. Aspenleader.
That's a slippery question, Dave. Thanks, friend. I think as it's currently laid out, I think staff does the vast majority of the planning for growth in our community. I think it's staff led, and I don't think that's best. Now, I think the planning staff and the public works staff on infrastructure and on land use planning have done a really good job. We work incredibly well with them. I think they've done a great job for our community. But I think that leads to a heck of a lot of reactive action from when the development community comes forward and pushes large projects ahead. We tend to be reactive. We have not done a good job, in my opinion, in leading from council to drive growth policy and spending on infrastructure to encourage economic development and activity in our community. I don't think that we, that our council has done a good job at that. Staff has done it for them for a lot of years, and they've done a fairly good job at it. We can argue about some of the minuscule items, but they've done the job that they've been tasked. I think that's something that has been slowly turned over from council to staff, and staff has taken it and done what they can with it. That responsibility should be from your elected officials.
Mr. Hernandez.
I think that there are visionaries in this community that influence the policies that the city council puts in place, that the staff then is responsible for carrying forth. I believe that we have professionals that are hired that work on behalf of all of us. And there are different roles that we play. The council is responsible for making decisions and putting policies forth in response to, in collaboration with other community leaders. And I think that's where the chamber plays a huge role in bringing people together. Now those are business leaders. There's other, whether it's healthcare, all the different areas that also we must take into consideration. And it's more than a single person or a single department's role in developing those. It's a group effort. And again, it's ongoing work because things continue to change. I know that it's been a couple of years since I sat down and had coffee with Chris and said, Chris, I think we need to start leading this city like it's a city of 250,000 people because we're growing quickly. And that's also why I stress that we need housing. We need these other strong services that will help all of us today and into the future. And I feel that, generally speaking, I haven't seen any huge disasters. I mean, there are going to be mistakes made. There will always be unhappy people. You can't lead and not have someone unhappy with you. I think it's our role to work together as best we can to create the best policies, and as a result.
All right. I think we have time for. Oh, I saw a question down here first. Sorry, Steve. Or we have time. Well, I think we have time for both. So.
Thank you. You both talk about nonprofits and social services when it comes to crime and the unhoused population. Some talk about there's not enough, and I just want to I guess, ask the question, where do you guys see holes in the system? Because I guess from my eyes, we have a lot of nonprofits and a lot of social services in Billings, and that's why we keep getting more of that unhoused population from other cities, and they keep coming here to get those services and get the everything that they need. So I just am wondering where you see the holes that we need more, because we have the continuum of care and other things like that.
Ms. Hernandez.
Do we have the whole day? Okay. So I'll try to be as succinct as I can. We definitely need services across the board. I mean, whether it's healthcare, healthcare, we don't have enough healthcare staffing in this city or across the country. So this is not just a Billings thing. We don't have enough mental health services, and it's not just for the, what I'm hearing the word transients, but it's not just folks who are, invisible and right now need services. We all need mental health services. It's on the healthcare spectrum. We either are in good mental health, mental and physical health, or, we're on that spectrum somewhere. We have the highest suicide rate in the country right now. And unfortunately, we stay in that top 5. That is an issue. That is a lack of healthcare services, which I include mental health in that. The reason people come here is because we do have those services available here, but they're still Montanans. They're still related to us. We're not, we don't have many degrees of separation in the state of Montana. So I feel that as long as the state is unable to fund those in smaller towns, yes, they're going to come here for services. It is a greater issue than the city council can solve on its own. I mean, again, we can be leaders in those conversations and also advocate for our community. We also have to, it's a bigger issue. We have to advocate also for the rural areas so that people can also reside in their communities with services they need.
Mr. Aspenlater.
I think your point is very well made, that we do have a lot of services in our city. We've got a lot of great nonprofits that do some really good work helping those folks that are transitioning that want to help. I think the problem that we have is helping those that do not want to be helped. And I think that's our problem. That's our problem area. That's the hole in the system. I think when groups like CLDI on the south side get their hands on you and give you a hand up, not a handout, I think they help you transform your life and become a productive, contributing member of our society. The problem that we have is with those who are looking for a consistent and constant handout. We don't have a service for those who aren't trying to help themselves. And don't get me wrong, like, it is not a one-step fix for these folks who have found themselves in a lot of trouble. There are relapses, there are fallbacks, but those that consistently come back and try to work to get out of that situation, get out. And I think our community has the support services to help those folks get back on their feet and become productive members of our society. We don't have a system and we don't have a support net for those who don't want help. And there are a lot of those in North Park. There are a lot of those downtown that aren't looking for help. They're happy with how things are because it's comfortable for them. That's the problem in our community. I think we've got good support systems. I think we've got great nonprofits that do really great work. I don't think service is a problem. I think dealing with those who don't want help and are comfortable in that situation is the problem.
All right, I think we have time for that one more question. Steve?
My question for the candidates. In infill or workforce housing?
Mr. Aspenlater.
I've brought this up a couple different times as it relates to annexation and land use development in our community. Council has not done a very good job they've used the hammer approach in trying to restrict development based on where or what you can annex. We saw this just a month ago. We had a couple developments up on the fringes of our community, and the conversation from some of the council was, we don't want continued growth and expansion to the west and to the north until we have full infill in our community. It doesn't work that way. The city does not, the city needs developers and investors in our community, not the other way around. Investors and developers do not need the city. We'll figure a way out to develop in the county if that's the way that the city wants to try to pursue this. That's a we can to play. Instead, the city should be looking at how do we create tax incentives for infill development. If that's what we want, then let's create some tax incentives to encourage infill development. Let's make those properties key targets for developers to go acquire and develop and increase the tax base. You're not getting those taxes as ag land anyway, so let's do some tax abatement work to encourage that infill development and instead of trying to play a weak hand and say we're not going to let anybody from the west or from the north annex into the city anymore, because we want you to develop inside, let's use some tax incentives to do that. I think that's great. Workforce housing is something, from my perspective, that we need to leave to the private sector. The city and the city government should not be engaged or involved in workforce housing. If we want to encourage workforce housing, we need to get out of the way when it comes to looking at multifamily developments and get out of the way as it relates to the building codes and the zoning codes that are adding cost to housing. The adoption of the 2021 building code drove the cost of construction in our community up wildly. All of a sudden, builders had a whole different set of standards to build to that were developed by the coasts and implemented in Billings. A lot of that stuff does not apply. We've got a builder sitting right there that can speak more fluently to that than I can. We need to get out of the way with red tape if we want to encourage workforce development. It's not the city's job to do it for our community.
Mr. Hernandez.
I believe in infill and workforce housing development. I feel that it is necessary to have a healthy growth in our city, to have that approach. There may be instances where annexation makes sense. Annexation also creates additional cost by future infrastructure maintenance and so forth. And it stresses the services that we already have, that we are already trying to, services that we need for our current city limits. As long as there's space to be filled in, why not use it? It already is on the grid. And yes, there are costs to building, and there, again, we don't have a local option tax where we can have benefit from visitors, to help, underwrite some of this cost and so forth. So, we have more and more seniors who are living on a restricted budget. All of this is pretty heavy cost to continue just to annex and not concentrate on infill and also workforce housing.
All right. Well, we've heard some agreement and disagreement today, but at the end of the day, voters have to pick one or the other of you. So by way of closing argument, respectfully, why should voters choose you over your competitor, Mrs. Hernandez?
I have been involved in this community since the month I got here. In my first decade here, I spent a lot of time in the Billings schools, working on committees, doing just various things with school and church. And then in the 90s, I was part of the development team that helped move the Yellowstone Art Center to become the Yellowstone Art Museum. I also helped in developing the capital campaign that has put Amon Park in place. Was a pasture, now is a great park for families to use. In the 2000s, I helped lead one of the most comprehensive policies that's still in place and has only been strengthened for the American Diabetes Association. It was a diabetes healthcare bill, and that was a very hard fight, but certainly have done that. And then also helped to the American Diabetes Association create a model camp for kids living with diabetes. Very proud of that because that was very hard work. And yes, that's working with nonprofits. And in 2010, I worked with a lot more nonprofits because I am a organizational development person, and so I help capacity building, provide capacity building to numerous nonprofits. Nonprofits, I feel, also help to provide heart and soul of any community. They also help to fill the gaps. They take on and advocate for our community members. It's nonpartisan. I'm used to working across, many groups in order to get things done. I'm a doer, and it takes bringing people together to find out what people need, how they want to see it, and to come. And it's never about me. I am asking people their opinions all the time. And I'm here to help create a better community. And I want Billings to be the #1 city in this state. I hope you'll vote for me.
All right. Mr. Aspen Leader.
All right. I appreciate the opportunity, first and foremost. I had a long-time council member and leader in our community tell me, city government should focus on the 3 Ps: pipes, potholes, and police. Infrastructure and public safety are the things that we need to return our focus to. My background is in all of those things. I bring leadership to the table, proven leadership at the state level, at the local level, and at the federal level. My history at 41 years old has been to be engaged in the legislature, to build relationships at different levels of government so that we can leverage relationships to solve problems. We don't have a lot of people able to do that on the city council right now. We are not leveraging relationships to build bonds with the Montana Department of Justice. I grew up with the Attorney General. He was the best man in my wedding. I serve as an advisor to him. I'm on the Montana Department of Transportation Commission, appointed by the governor. My work in transportation, in DEQ and DNRC issues as it relates to infrastructure is unmatched in that level of leadership and knowledge and expertise as it comes to capital improvements planning, land use planning, and planning for the growth of our community while keeping public safety in mind is something that we don't have currently running for city council, and it's something that I bring to the table, and I'm happy to do for our community, because we need to refocus our efforts to return Billings to the community that we all knew it to be and want it to be for the next generation. So I would appreciate your consideration. I'm always happy to talk and always happy to hear you out. So my contact information's in the back. My cell phone number and my business email is there. Please reach out if you have questions, but I appreciate the opportunity today.
All right. Let's give both these candidates a big round of applause. Thank you for being here today. Thank you all for coming. I want to thank our sponsors again on the table tents. On the back of the table tents, you'll see our upcoming Coffee with Candidates events. We have one more for Ward 2 coming up next week. And feel free to hit that QR code to register. That's also where the videos will be available. And I want to let you know we have a candidate forum coming up on October 10th where you'll be able to see all of the candidates on one stage. So once again, thank you all for coming.